chapter 5. That will be our lesson text for class this morning. Matthew chapter 5. Verse 1 says, "And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain," this being Jesus. "And when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying," before we go into the next verses, what this is Jesus is about the age of 30 at this time, and Jesus is going to start what we call his earthly ministry, starting at the Sermon on the Mount. And what he's going to do for the next few chapters is he's going to lay the foundation for the new law that will take place after his death. This is what this is. This is Jesus laying his new commands that we are to follow because we are living after his death. With this in mind, verse 3 through verse 12, we're given the Beatitudes. Verse 3 says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you." Jesus starts out his sermon by saying, so you want to be happy. That's what that word here, blessed, it means happy. Happy are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What does poor in spirit mean? This is one of these, we read the Bible and we don't really think about what that means because we're just trying to read the Beatitudes because we're really wanting to get to some other ones, so we don't really think about poor in spirit. Poor in spirit is knowing that spiritually we are poor without Christ. It is knowing that without Christ, spiritually, we have nothing. That's what poor in spirit means. He says those that know we are helpless without Christ, they are happy because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is saying, so you want to be a happy person? You want to be happy? Be poor in spirit. Why? See, he doesn't just say be poor in spirit, be happy because you're mourning. He gives the reason why you need to be happy or why you will be happy. Those that are poor in spirit will be are happy and should be because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He says, you want to be happy? Be poor in spirit. Then he says, happy are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. You know, that kind of sounds contradictory. Happy are those that are sad. That doesn't make sense. Well, you have to finish the verse. He says, happy are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And then you say, well, who's going to comfort them? You know, I've done this class before, and someone came to me afterwards and said, what if that person has no one? How are they going to be comforted? You know, that just doesn't seem right. How can someone be sad, but if they have no one be comforted? Well, maybe they won't be comforted physically, but if they follow what Jesus teaches, spiritually, God will comfort them. But physically, those that mourn, there should be people there to comfort them. But Jesus says you want to be happy in mourning, know that you will be comforted. Then he says, happy are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What does meek mean? Humble. Happy are the humble, for they shall inherit the earth. Happy are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. He says, be happy. You want to be happy? Hunger and thirst after righteousness, for you will be filled. You know, we hunger and thirst after things like entertainment. We hunger and thirst physically for food, but we're never filled forever. We always eventually want more. He says you want to be happy, hunger and thirst after righteousness because you will be filled. Happy are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. You want to be happy? Be a merciful person, because you will obtain mercy. You know, another scripture, Jesus says to forgive those. That's Jesus, the model prayer, if you will. He says, Father, forgive us as we forgive others our wrongdoings. If we are not merciful to others, God won't be merciful to us. He says, you want to be happy, though? You want to be a happy person? Be a forgiving person, because you will be forgiven. He says, so, you want to be happy? Happy are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. You know, whenever I read this verse, I think of Stephen as he's giving his defense in Acts to the people, and they start to stone him. He looks up into the heavens and he sees the glory of God. And he says, look, behold Jesus standing at the right hand of God, and they all think he's crazy. No one else seen God. You know why? Because no one else was pure in heart. Pure in heart, the people that are pure in heart, they will see God. Now that, for us, does not physically mean we can look up into heaven and see God on his throne. That is not what that means. But the pure in heart will see God in everything. In nature, in other people, in life. Those that are pure in heart will see God. So you want to be happy? Be someone that's pure in heart, because you will see God. Happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. What's a peacemaker? These are words that we don't really use anymore today, but we need to understand, what's a peacemaker? It's pretty...
Someone that seeks peaceful resolutions to difficulties in life.
That's right. Someone that is not always trying to start fights. And when he sees a fight, he tries to stop it. He says, so you want to be happy? Be a peacemaker. Don't be the person that likes to start stuff. You know, starting stuff is easy, and sometimes it's a little fun. He says, don't be like that. Be a peacemaker. Be the person that tries to make resolutions, tries to fix things peacefully, not trying to start fights, not trying to get into them, but tries to be peace. Tries to make peace with all men. Try to be a peacemaker. Why? Why would I want to be a peacemaker? Why would that make me happy? Because you will be called a child of God. Because we make peace, because we are peacemakers, we will be called the children of God. So you want to be happy. Happy are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Here we go again, another one of those that sounds contradictory. Happy are they which are persecuted. Why? How can I be happy being persecuted? You know, our persecution, you know, Jesus was talking to people that in a matter of years would eventually have to start giving their lives for Christ. You know, their persecution and our persecution is very different. But it is still persecution nonetheless. How can we be happy when we are persecuted? For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It's all about mindset as a Christian. Persecution is one of the number one things that cause Christians to fall away. Is because they do not see how God would want them to suffer persecution. They don't see what they'll ever get out of this, so they leave. They leave because in the midst of persecution they feel alone, and they see no end and they see no prize. All they see is the persecution that they are in, and they no longer want it, so they leave. How can I be happy in the midst of persecution? Remember what I am going towards. You know, Paul said, for I have fought the good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Paul was persecuted all the time. He was stoned, he was shipwrecked, he was beaten, he would eventually be martyred for Christ. How could Paul say he has kept the faith? How was he able to do that? Because he knew there was a crown of righteousness waiting for him on the other side. That's the mindset for us Christians. Jesus said, you want to be happy in persecution? Remember what's waiting for you if you endure it. But then Jesus changes. Have you ever noticed his wording in verse 11? You know, he's been saying, blessed are they. He's coming from a third person. Blessed are people that do these things. Then he changes it and he talks directly to his crowd and saying, blessed are you. He changes it from being blessed are they that do these things to blessed are you. When men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Jesus changed it from being blessed are people, blessed are they that are persecuted. They will be blessed. They can be happy because they will have a crown of righteousness. He changes it and said, blessed are you when men shall persecute you. He changes it from being this third person. This is, you want to be happy. He said, you can be happy. You. Because great is your reward in heaven. He says, and think about this, so were the prophets. They were persecuted in the same ways that you were. You know, history accounts say that some 65 to 70% of all the prophets, and I think it's more like 95 of the prophets, were killed. And about 75% of those prophets were killed in ways that we cannot even fathom. Isaiah, it is said that he was sawn asunder. It is where they would take you and quite literally saw you in two. He said these prophets that came and testified to the people about God, majority of them died. He said, rejoice when you suffer persecution. A lot of these people were about to give their lives for Christ later in the same ways the prophets did. He said, you need to rejoice, for great is your reward in heaven. He keeps going back to all these things that we can't understand. Persecution, being reviled, being mocked, all these things that we don't understand how we can be happy. He always gives the same answer. So you want to be happy in persecution? Remember the goal. So you want to be happy when being mocked and ridiculed? Remember the goal. You want to be happy when you are killed, when you're on that spot. When Stephen was about to be stoned, what did he do? He didn't say, I don't understand. No, he looked up to the Father. So you want to be happy in persecution? Remember the end goal. That's the Beatitudes. He starts it out with, so you want to be happy? This is what you need to do. Then he changes it from being, so you want to be a happy person, to, as a follower, these are some things you need to do. From verses 13 down to verse 16, would somebody like to read that, verses 13 through 16?
You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled under foot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven.
See, Jesus changes his topic, if you will, in his sermon from being, you want to be a happy person, to now he's changing it. He's talking to his followers. These are some things you need to do. As followers of God, as followers of me, you are the salt of the earth. What's the point of salt? Preserving and flavoring. The salt is, I looked it up and I forgot, apologies, but salt in some form and in some amount is in, I believe, 85 or 95% of the foods we eat, in some form. It may be so much that we don't even know it is there, but it's still in there. Salt is in pretty much everything we eat. What good is salt if it has no flavor? It has no purpose. It is good to just get rid of it, throw it away. We don't throw it outside, we just throw it in the trash can. That's what he's saying as followers of Christ, followers of God. You are the salt of the earth. You're the difference. You are what flavors. You're what preserves. And if you lose that flavoring, if you lose that savory, that preservation that you are commanded, you are henceforth good for nothing but to be thrown out. Jesus was making a point. If you're not going to do the things that are commanded, don't even call yourself a Christian. Because there's no point. You're not actually doing what you were made to do. If you do not follow and do the things that are, if we do not do the things that are commanded of us, as Jesus taught them, if we're not that flavoring that Jesus commanded us to be, if we're not that preservation that Jesus commanded us to be, then we're not doing our job. And just like salt, in that area, we're good for nothing because we're not doing what we were made to do. You know, Jesus often, when he would give analogies like he just did with salt, he would use things that everyone could understand. Everybody understood the purpose of salt. And he's going to give a second one in verse 14. You are the light of the world, a city set on top of a hill that cannot be hid. You know, these were things people understood. They understood what salt was for. They understood that lights can't be hid. They understood that cities that were on top of hills, you can't really hide that. He said, neither do men take a light on a candle. No, men don't take a candle and put it under a bush, but on a candlestick, so that it giveth light unto all that are in the house. So let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. He gives another example that everybody understood. You don't take a candle, you don't light it, and put it under a bush outside. That's not the purpose of a candle. The purpose of a candle is to give light. Jesus said, as Christians, as followers of Christ, as followers of God, you are the light of the world. You are that candle. We have to choose if we're going to get put on a candlestick or if we're going to go hide under the bush. He said, as followers of God, we need to light up the world. You know, that song that we sing at VBS, I know I've sang it for years, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And you know, at VBS, I sing this song all the time, and I've noticed that we don't really think about what we're really singing. And most of the time we don't really mean it. This little light of mine, I am the light, I'm going to let it shine. Do we really, though? Do we really? But we were commanded by Jesus to be the light. So Jesus changes it from you. So you want to be a happy person, to now, as a follower of God, you are to be the difference. Then he changes the topic again. Jesus often would bring in a lot of topics in a single sermon. So now he changes it. Verse 17, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. And the next verse is following, verse 20. Jesus is really going to start laying the foundation, like I said at the beginning of this class, for his law, the New Testament, if you will. But before Jesus does so, he says, I'm not come to destroy the law, that being the old law. I'm not come to destroy that or the prophets. I'm come to fulfill it. Over 200 prophecies were made about Jesus. The point of the old law itself was to lead the Jews to Jesus. All of these things, Jesus was not going to just destroy, he was going to fulfill it. At which he would do on the cross. And at which point he would, with himself, nail our sins and the old law to the cross. And his new law, after his death, would be put in place. The New Testament. But Jesus said, I have not come to destroy the old law. That's not what I came to do. I didn't come to just get rid of the 10 Commandments and the prophets. That's not what my point was. I came to fulfill it. But until I fulfill everything, don't break the commandments. See, at this time where Jesus was teaching, they were still under the old law. Jesus acknowledged that, and Jesus told them to follow the old law. That's what they were under. But after his death, the old law would be done away with and the new law would be put in place. Verse 20 I find very interesting. He says, For unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. See, the scribes and the Pharisees, they did what they did largely for self-recognition. They didn't do the things they did. They were good things. They would help people. They would pray. They would do all these things. They followed the old law to a T, but they didn't do it because they wanted to strive their best to follow God. They did it because they wanted attention. And he said to these Jews, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Unless you follow me, unless you follow the Father, and you mean it, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Then, starting in verse 21, Jesus gets to the point of the Sermon on the Mount, his point in laying the foundation. Yea, ye have heard that it has said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill. Whosoever shall be killed shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if thou bring a thing to the altar, and there remembers that thy brother has aught against thee, leave thy gift before the altar. Go thy way, first be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. Jesus said, Ye have heard of old time, it was, Thou shalt not kill. You know, that was one of the 10 Commandments was, Thou shalt not commit murder, thou shalt not kill. Jesus said, I don't want you to be angry with your brother. You'll notice we're not going to have time this morning in class to go through this entire chapter. But you'll notice with every single point he makes, he brings out one of the 10 Commandments. Like thou shalt not murder. But he goes deeper. The old law commanded people not to murder. Jesus said under the new law, that wasn't in place yet. It is now. You shall not stay angry with the brother. You shall not call him Raca. You shall not call him a fool. In other words, when you get angry with your brother, you are not supposed to call him names. You know, sometimes we do that as a joke. But when we do that in a meaning manner, we mean to call that person fool or stupid or whatever word we want to use for that. When we do that on purpose, we are in danger of hellfire. Now, the old law commanded not to kill. Jesus said, I don't want you to stay angry with your brother. He did that for 2 reasons. You know, Solomon says, let not the sun come down upon your wrath. There's a reason you do not need to stay angry with someone, because eventually, if that anger keeps staying in you, that anger can turn to hate, and that hate can turn into many other things. Jesus said, I don't even want you to stay angry with your brother. I don't want you to call him names, because one sin easily leads to another. He said, I want you, as followers of me, I want you to go deeper. I want you to go farther than just not killing people. I want you to not stay angry with them. I don't want you to call them names. I want you to be a peacemaker. Verse 27, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is more profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is more profitable that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. We're going to stop there and finish the rest of those verses in a minute. Jesus brings out another one of the 10 Commandments. I shall not commit adultery. He says, I don't want you to look at a woman to lust after her. Under the old law, as long as you did not commit adultery, you were okay. Jesus said, no. I don't want you to look at a woman to lust after her. Jesus went deeper. He wants us as his followers to just go deeper than scratching the surface. Not murdering, not committing adultery. He wants us to go deeper. That's what Jesus is doing through his Sermon on the Mount, is showing us as Christians how to go deeper. Don't even look at a woman to lust after her. Then he takes verses 29 and 30, some verses that they kind of seem drastic. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it off. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off. Jesus does not literally mean to pluck out your eye and cut off your hand if you have problems of, if you are continually sinning in areas of your eyes and your hands. That's not what he's meaning. But I do believe he did mean get rid of anything that causes you to stumble. If that means losing your eyesight. Because it's better to go to heaven without eyesight. It's better to go to the grave without eyesight or without hands than to go to hell with eyes and hands. That's what he was saying. If it comes down to that, there are ways that you can get rid of things. If it's your cell phone that you need to get rid of it. If it's that job that's tempting you to do things that you don't need to do, get rid of it. If it's that family member that every time you get around them you sin, stay away from them. If it's that friend group, no matter what your age is, we talk about friend groups for the youth, and rightfully so, but it doesn't matter what your age is. If that's those people that you're around, get rid of them. Jesus said, if anything causes you to stumble, I don't care what it is, get rid of it. And he went to the farthest, if it means your eyesight. If you cannot stop sinning, no matter what, because of your eyes, get rid of it. There should be nothing that you're willing to keep that will keep you out of heaven. Nothing. That sounds drastic, and it is. But what do we care about more? That's what Jesus is really. The point Jesus is making is, what do you care about more? Do you care more about God and spending eternity with him, or do you care about stuff now and spending eternity in hell? What are you willing to give up? That's the point. It doesn't literally mean if your hand's continually doing things you shouldn't do, cut it off. I do believe Jesus meant that if it comes down to that you cannot, no matter what, stop sinning. As drastic, as painful as that would be, get rid of it. That was the point. No matter what it is, no matter how much you care about it, get rid of it. If it is going to keep you from heaven, get rid of it. That was the point of Jesus saying those two verses. Oftentimes people take those verses and say Jesus was crazy. He was a maniac. Who would want people to cut off their hands? That was not what Jesus was trying to get at. He was saying, if something keeps you from heaven, or is keeping you from heaven rather, get rid of it. 31, it hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. Here is a topic that a lot of preachers don't like to get into due to the animosity that gets created because of the topic. Marriage, divorce, and remarriage. Because they're afraid they'll offend somebody. They don't really know where the lines are drawn. Jesus was very clear. He said, under the old law, Moses gave them the right of divorcement if you wanted to get rid of your wife for any reason. As long as you got a writing of divorcement, you were okay. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, unless it be for the cause of fornication, of adultery, if your wife cheats on you, at which point you have the right to divorce her. For any other reason, you have no right to do so. Because what happens when you divorce your spouse, except it be for the cause of adultery, which y'all both done, is put yourself in a situation where neither one of you can marry again. Because if you remarry, y'all both commit adultery. Jesus said, you keep your spouse. And if she does something, if she cheats, if she commits fornication, if she commits adultery, you have the freedom to divorce her. And that goes vice versa. The wife, husband, husband, wife, either way. You have that, at which point you can do so. But any other reason, you married her for better or for worse. And if y'all choose, if you cannot no longer stay married and divorce, except it be for the cause of fornication, neither one of you are allowed to remarry, because at which point either one of you remarry, y'all have both committed adultery. It's a topic that a lot of preachers haven't preached on for years out of fear and out of not knowing how to answer questions. Jesus was clear. Jesus said, unless it be the cause of adultery, you keep your spouse. And if you choose to get rid of each other, you can't remarry. Jesus went deeper than just getting a writing of divorcement for whatever you want. He said, you don't get rid of them unless it be for the cause of adultery. Verses 33 to 37, if we have a volunteer to read those, verses 33 through 37.
Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one.
These verses, scholars and preachers disagree on. Jesus said, you've heard of old time that you don't need to break your oaths. They would make oaths. I will do this thing, and I swear by the throne of God that I will do it. And that oath would be made, and they had to do that. And the old law was that you were not allowed to break that. There would be severe punishment for doing so. Jesus said, don't. Don't make oaths. Don't swear. Don't swear by heaven, for it is God's throne. Don't swear by the earth, for it is his footstool. Don't swear by Jerusalem, for it is the great city of the King. Don't swear by your head, because you can't change the color of what's one of your hairs. You can't. People disagree on what Jesus meant. Some say that Jesus didn't mean that you are not allowed to say, I promise I'll be there. I swear I'll be there. Some say that Jesus said it was okay to, as long as it wasn't by the things that Jesus said, as long as it was by something else, Jesus was fine with that. Others say that Jesus no longer wanted that. He wanted their communication to be yes or no. He wanted our word to be our word, but he wanted us to not have to say, I promise I'll be there. I swear I'll be there. He wanted our communication. I tend to lean towards the latter. I believe Jesus was saying, I want your communication to be yes. I believed as our followers, he wanted us to be able to say, yes, I'll be there, and people trusted that we would be there. He wanted our word to be our word, and we didn't have to swear, we didn't have to promise, we didn't have to make oaths. That's why they had to make oaths, because nobody trusted anybody. They didn't trust that they would be there. They didn't trust that they'd do this, so they made an oath to make sure they'd be there. Jesus was saying, I want your yes to be yes. I want your no to be no. If you say yes, I'll be there, be there. Don't make you people have to think you have to promise and swear and make oaths. Be there. And if you say no about something, then no. That's what Jesus is saying. But some say that it was still fine. To be honest with you, I'm not for sure. That is really up to you to decide. But Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. I tend to think Jesus was saying, let your yes be yes and your no be no. No longer we need to start making oaths by Jerusalem or by Lynchburg. I promise by Lynchburg I'll be here. No. I'll be there. Be there. That's what Jesus was saying. He wanted us to go deeper. Don't make people not trust us because we don't do the things we say. Be there. And that's not always easy. And there are cases where we can't act and things come up and we can't be there. But try our best. When we say we're going to do something, do it. Don't make people have to make you promise. You know, I've had people come up, I'll do this. Do you promise? Well, I promise. We shouldn't have to promise people that we'll do things. Our word should be our word. Verse 38. You have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that you resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him take thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him too. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not away. This is one that I struggle with personally. You know, under the old law, it was an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If you do something to me, I'm allowed to do it back. You steal something from me, I'm allowed to take from you under the old law. You would murder, they would murder you. But Jesus said, no, you turn the other cheek. This is hard for me personally. I struggle with this sometimes. You know, people say something smart to you, or they do something to you, my automatic reaction is, I'm going to do something back. That's what Jesus did. Jesus said, don't. Turn the other cheek. Someone says something to you that we just automatically, I want to say something back. I'm going to get him back. That's just the automatic reaction. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Don't do that. Just stop. That one's hard for me, but it's one of the harder ones. And we are out of time, so let's pray.